If you stereotype and you look at people and you see their race, their ethnicity, their faith, those are what makes us diverse. You see their spiritual practices, you see the way that they believe, whatever it is they believe. You see all of that. You see the things that they do. Those are the things that make us each unique.
Mm-hmm.
But it removes focus on the fact that we are all still human.
Yeah.
And it removes focus on the fact that we all deserve the right to safety. We have the right to safety. We have the right to live our lives as we see fit.
Welcome to Good Enough with the Trauma Therapist, a podcast dedicated to empowering you to take control of your life, learning valuable strategies for healing and looking at mental health through a trauma-informed lens. Get ready to feel empowered and confident in managing your symptoms. And now, here is your host, licensed clinical social worker, EMDR therapist, and certified clinical trauma professional, Jamie Vollmoeller.
Welcome to Good Enough. I am your host, Jamie Vollmoeller, and in today's episode, I am having you guys watch and listen to a previously recorded show I did called Coffee with Friends with my dear friend, Mary Byler. Mary is CEO of the Amish Misfit, and they also host their own podcast. So stick around. It was an amazing conversation.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time it is in whatever part of the world you're at. Welcome to another episode of Coffee with Friends. I'd like to remind you that the guests on our live streams reflect a diverse set of values, morals, and ethics that may not reflect the morals, values, and ethics of the Misfit Amish. Coffee with Friends may also discuss trauma of all sorts, to include all types of abuse. Viewers and listeners may find it unsettling and triggering. If this live stream causes you distress, please cease listening until you are able to listen again. You may also seek support from your trusted folks and qualified mental health professionals as needed. With that being said, I'd like to welcome Jamie. Jamie is the host of Good Enough with a Trauma Therapist. Hi, Jamie. Hi. How's it going?
I'm excited. I'm looking forward. So being on maternity leave, I don't get a lot of social interaction. So any opportunity to talk to you, Mary, I'm always excited. I'm like,
so you're using me?
Well,
I feel so used.
It's a preferred activity. It's a preferred activity.
I see how this is. I see what's happening here. I'm aware, Jamie. I'm aware. Now I see. Okay.
No, I'm really, really excited. So, I had reached out to Mary because I know Mary's just as political as I am. And the rhetoric that has been going on right now is very concerning to me as a woman, as a human, as someone who cares about people that are in disadvantaged groups. It's really, really concerning. So I wanted to reach out to Mary and start some talks about it and just educate people, not based on political party or whatever, but just to review like this is what's happening. This is the actual effect. This is the policies that are in place. Here are some policies, hopefully, that we can get to that we can advocate for. And kind of looking at, depending on how far we go, Mayor, where the political conversation goes and helping people determine what is fact from fiction. Because in a very unbiased way, because it's just not out there. And I think that the more that we silo and don't talk about it, the worse it's going to get. Like, that's why politics is the way it is, because we're always told don't talk about it. So everyone stays in their silos. So we don't hear the other side. And it creates this like us versus them. And this whole idea came about when I was walking with my girlfriend, Carrie. And she's a hardcore Republican, like MAGA supporter, like hardcore Republican. Like, she's literally like, we're not talking politics. And we were watching actually the debate between Trump and Kamala. And she had texted me, love you. And I was like, yeah, I love you more than, any political discussion. Like, just because she sees things very differently than me, she's concerned about different things than me. It's based on information that I know is skewed and not necessarily true. But in her world, that feels very real. So for me to just, call her an idiot, not hear her out, we're never going to get anywhere there. And I'm not going to be Trump and say there's good people on both sides.
Are you saying that's not how you operate? I'm sorry. What?
No, but I just think that, there's so much disinformation and so much negativity that if we can focus on like what is true, what is factual, and what can we do about it? Like, because that to me, as someone who was a survivor my whole life, is like what I'm always looking for to help with my anxiety is what can we do to make a difference? And I felt like this could be a good way for us to make a difference, Mayor.
Well, I've never had anybody reach out to me and want to actually talk about policy and politics and kind of like how does like what is actually happening versus like the disinformation out there.
Mm-hmm.
Not like this. So that was new. That was a first for me. And I really thought about saying no. But here's the thing. We always have a reason why we do things or why we find things important.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I find it vital to actually talk about actual policy, actual information, things that are real, is because while I was born in America, I was born in Amish America, in a world where I felt like my voice was taken from me, where I felt like my voice was controlled by the men in charge of me, where I was trained how to walk, how to talk, what to say, and told what I'm not allowed to say by the people around me. And the people who enforce that, guess who was the most aggressive enforcer? Guess who that was? Any ideas?
Who?
Women. Because proximity to power allows some people to remain in a delusional state where they believe as long as they uphold the values of the group or the values of the people that they think they belong to, when they have that proximity to power, it gives them a certain kind of privilege. And when they have that privilege, they can sit in a state where they can say, this will never happen to me. I see it happening to other people, but it's really because they did not uphold the core values of the group adequately.
Well, that's their position of privilege, right? Because they are higher up in that group and it's in their best interest to shut it down and because they're the enforcers, right? Essentially.
And who was it that said neutrality always benefits the oppressor?
I know the quote, but I don't know who.
Eli Wiesel, I think, or Eli.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if I'm saying the name right. You know the quote, though. But you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Because silence is not golden.
No.
Silence is not golden.
Well, and there's also this whole other piece of the disinformation is intentional, right? Because they are trying to, like even the fact that on like some media sites were literally saying like, don't watch the January 6th hearings. Like, why would you not watch that? Why would you like, I want people to really think about that. Why would they not want you to watch that? Like, so you can make an informed decision because anyone who watched it is going to see facts and reality. And what's shown to us through the news and social media is very, very skewed. And for us to not be shown that for entire like media silos to make decisions about don't show this or don't do that, like to not provide that information is a form of control because they're telling you this is all bullshit. You don't need to listen to it anyway. Don't look here. It's the Romans and the circus and the bread, right? Do you know that story?
Okay. I don't know that story. But
Okay.
what I do know is that it's information control,
Yeah.
which reminds me, do you want to hear what it reminds me of?
Yes.
It reminds me of the fact that I went to 5 different Amish schools. And in those 5 different Amish schools, guess who set the rules about the curriculum?
The people that are higher up in the hierarchy, I would assume.
The men.
Yeah.
The men. And we would have a school board, and the school board would still answer to the ministry. So this was a heavily moderated curriculum, henceforth why, yes, I learned reading, writing, arithmetic, English, and a little bit of history and geography, but there were pages in my books that literally were removed. There were things that were blacked out. There were entire sections removed.
But that's
It-
we're literally trying to, but they did that so that you would not have the information of the outside world, so you would not know anything different than that community. And that is
Right.
literally what some members of our Congress are currently trying to do. They're trying to ban books. They are banning books from, like, they are banning us from information. They are saying that we should not be teaching about our history of racism in this country, or anything outside of, white ethnocentrism. Basically, if we don't whitewash America, they don't want it in our history for our children to read. And our history is super, super important, because it's only if we know what we did in the past, right? Part of the reason experiencing trauma is so hard is you could stay in that trauma response and not know you're in it. So if you don't know you're repeating your history, you're never going to know if you don't know the history. And I think it's just, there's just so many things about this that make it so scary, because it really does. And I was like, Mary would be the perfect person, because Mary's always talking about like high control groups. And I feel like we're walking into something that could be like leading to us having very little say, and it just being decided for us. And that, as someone who has always felt like, no, we have to fight, and especially because you're saying, like, women are so important, and we do have a voice now, and we can vote. And I talked to, like, my family's very Republican too, and my aunt said to me, 2016, when Hillary Clinton was running, right, she was like, why are you voting for her, by all these terrible things. And I was like, he's saying he's going to overturn Roe v. Wade. Like, I cannot, of good moral conscience, ever vote for someone like that. I cannot. And my aunt said to me, that sentiment that you had, oh, that'll never happen. And then, when it did happen, what they say to me now is, well, it'll never happen in New York. Right. So, and that to me is also like, okay, so do we not care about the people in Texas? Because my little sister moved to Texas with my 2 nieces. So I very much care about reproductive health care in Texas. I very much care about reproductive health care across the country, because it is a place of privilege that I get to say that my reproductive health rights are not currently on the line in New York, but they are somewhere else. And the women in those places do not have as much power to speak out.
Well, then, not only that, but women are literally sitting in parking lots bleeding
Yeah.
out. And I think part of it for me, and I've worked in the medical field since 2005. So let me just allow me my little part of what baffles me is when people talk about abortions.
Mm-hmm.
When people talk about abortions, they talk about it as if people are just killing babies.
Yeah.
They don't understand. Until there is birth, and any birth is an abortion, because what is the actual definition of abortion? Because even when people have miscarriages, they are considered a spontaneous abortion. Every single birth is an abortion because the fetus is exiting the body. exiting the womb.
And they plan on tracking like women's like cycles so that they'll know. Like, you talk about policing of women, right? Like, if they're planning on tracking our cycles and having access to data to know, to try to investigate women and prosecute them for miscarrying,
Let's be
or
real.
what?
Let's be real.
Yeah.
You know who tracks? In my world, do you want to know who tracks the cycles of women and AFAB bodies?
Other women?
Rapists.
Oh, yeah, that too.
And people who are enabling
Yeah.
that.
I was thinking moms, but rapists, yes, because they don't want to impregnate you. Yes.
Yes, that's who. So when you talk about why you can't vote for somebody, I'll give you my why. Have you heard my why?
I'm not sure.
Here's my why. I will never vote for somebody that makes comments about their own children
Oh, God.
being
Yeah.
sexual.
Yes.
You know who else does that? People who perpetrate CSA and SA and incest.
Mm-hmm.
And in my world, the comments that were made by certain people and have been put out there, they're eerily similar to certain things that some of my perpetrators who were convicted of SA made.
Well, because it's that mindset, and people that fulfill those high authority, high control positions tend to be kind of narcissistic in nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
So your worldview doesn't really matter very much to them there, unfortunately.
So for me, it would be a moral injury to compel me to vote for somebody who reminds me of those people.
Well,
It
and
would psychologically harm me.
yeah, I mean, I cried when Donald. I literally cried. No, and honestly, even that story, right? So I was working in a school for teenage girls who were placed there. They didn't live at home. They it was a residential like placement school for some girls had mental health issues. Some girls were placed through juvie. All of them had significant, severe childhood trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one day that President Trump came out and said something about people with disabilities, like, because he just makes disparaging remarks about just about anyone who is not a white male subject, a rich white male who agrees with everything that comes out of his mouth right now. And it doesn't matter if you agreed before, like, it's right now. He could flip on you at any time because, again, it's his own self-interest, is someone he's going to say disparaging remarks about. But it was so sad because the kids, right? Like, I want us to think even about the intergenerational trauma aspect of what we are living through right now and what our kids think is normal in society. Like, we have a whole generation of kids that think that talking about issues like this is normal, is acceptable, and it's really furthering that hate and that negative language and violence from people who are incited by these comments because they're saying that these groups of people like the Haitian migrants are taking their jobs and apparently eating dogs and cats, and all the other horrible things that they say about them. It's literally so that they can remove, like, Trump is talking about removing these people. They are citizens.
This is what it's doing. And I'm going to use an example. So there's a lot of Christian ministries that
Mhm.
go to Haiti for mission work. Let's
Mhm.
establish the reality of what it is. And for example, you can think about Christian Aid ministries, various types of Mennonite churches that evangelize. They have sent missionaries to Haiti to do mission work.
Yeah.
Christian Aid Ministry specifically is geographically located in Ohio. So why would Haitians not, if they immigrate to America, why would they not go to Ohio? Especially if they converted to some type of Anabaptist church, since Christian Aid Ministries is really a combination of various Amish and Anabaptist churches, pretty much. Secondly, the crimes that have been committed by Christian Aid Ministries and the pays that they paid the survivors of violence that were perpetrated against them by their missionaries in Haiti is horrendous. But they also spend $6 million a year on advertising budget for over 1,900 billboards across 46 states in the United States. Did you know that?
I did not. So fill me in on this, Mare. So you're saying that this organization, Christian Ministries, is operating in Haiti, and then they're also, but they were, what is the lawsuits over? I guess I missed the lawsuit. I'm not up on that.
There was a man named Jeriah Mast who they knew was a perpetrator of sexual violence towards children.
Yeah.
And they sent him over to Haiti. And then he got sent back and they married him off. And they had him supervised by another perpetrator with allegations of sexual violence towards children named Harold Hare, who has a history of over 30 years of allegations. And they married him off and they sent him back to Haiti, where he continued his saga of violence towards Haitian families. And then they brought him back to the U.S. and prosecuted him for crimes he committed against United States citizens, their children.
Oh my God.
So I'm saying that it is multifaceted in how we look at this rhetoric about Haitian people that are in America and even why they would go to Ohio.
Well,
and even the responsibility of often who the very same people are that are sitting there and they are promoting and spewing this idea that we have to remove immigrants from this country. We have to remove the Haitians. We have to get rid of them.
It doesn't even make sense with the data though, Mara. That's what bothers me, right? So like there was something on the news and I'm going to try to find that article so we can link it for people. But there was something I saw like on the physical like TV news about how since the Haitians moved in after the crisis in Haiti, it's actually caused a boom in the economy there. Like it's doing really well because it was a town that was desolate and had a bunch of abandoned buildings, and the Haitians moving in and opening up businesses actually started revitalizing their town. So the town people are not upset about the Haitians being there because they have contributed. And historically through America, like we've been a great nation because of immigrants. So this rhetoric of otherness is really just old white men claiming their power, like they're clinging to their power and trying to convince everyone that if we don't, that we're going to be worse off. Or that the reason that we're worse off now isn't because corporate America, is running our politics and not paying us what we should, but because, these other people, these immigrants, these people that don't look or sound like us, these people are the reason. And that's deliberate. That's again, so let me explain the Romans, because the Romans and the bread and the circus is what this is, Mare. So the Romans, their people were very, very poor, but and they weren't happy. But the way that they kept the empire going for so long, even though they didn't take care of their people, was every once in a while they'd throw a circus and give them some bread. So when shit got bad, that's what they do. Like, here, distract you over here. Here's some food. Now you're happy. Look away. And that is what our both sides of our country do all the time, or our politics do all the time, is look over here. And I feel like that's a lot of this, like, oh, they're eating the dogs and cats. Like, don't talk about the fact that we killed the border bill. no, these migrants are a problem. Look over here. It's not even a real story. Dana Bash literally, like, in that interview, you have that clip, right? Roll the clip, girl. Roll the clip.
Hold up. But this, she never meant to spark. Okay. I'm sorry.
Oh, this is
No.
a different one. Yeah. So this is even, we can start here. Like, in the woman that started the social media post claiming that there was Haitian migrants in our town eating the cats and dogs, said it wasn't true. Like, and that she didn't think that it would spread like wildfire. So apparently it started a few weeks before JD Vance put it out. And once JD Vance put it out, obviously it blew up, and then Trump mentioned it in the debate, and now all this stuff happened. But it was just this tiny little comment on a social media site that then was like picked up and run with. Like, no fact checking, no. And there's a reason they do that, right? It's because it doesn't matter if it's true. It just matters if it fits their narrative. And that's a problem. It's a problem when leadership doesn't care about facts and reality. It's just, oh, it fits our narrative, so let's play this. Oh, I'm missing you. I can't hear you, Mare.
It's my mic.
Oh,
It's not even addressing the fact, like, if you look like me, you're probably an immigrant, or your ancestors were immigrants.
Yeah.
I'm the 10th generation. Okay. And it's creating this divide, which further feeds the us versus them mentality that people use then to look the other way and to justify the harm. They're able to much easier justify the harm that is caused by saying things like this. But let's go back to we're going to show
the clip where he rats himself out. So now, to be fair to those on the other side, I know people are going to say that what JD Vance is trying to refer to is that he made this like cat meme on social media to promote the idea and spread the idea. But there is a Freudian slip there in which he does say that he's spreading false claims because he messed up and unconsciously framed it that way, because that's what it is.
Shall we?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. So, I just want to point out, this displays the ends justifies the means mentality. When we talk about high control groups and you talk about the ends justify the means, there's this vision, this idea of like higher goals, greater good. And often when it's interspersed with like religious ideology, it's this holy goal. They are doing it for the greater good for everybody else. They are saving the whole world.
Yeah.
And then they use that to justify also enable this ends justify the means. So it doesn't matter how many people they harm on their way to accomplish their goals, as long as they accomplish them.
Yeah.
There's no accountability for the harm that is caused by this. There's no personal caring about whether this is truth or not, because they can just say whatever they want to as long as they can logically justify it in their head. So let's talk about the harm caused by this, because it also incorporates this hero, rescuer, savior mentality that we often see, where it's like, we know what's best for you. You probably don't even know what you need, but I'm going to tell you what you need, and this is what you need.
And it's also like going back to what you said earlier, there's a lot of like line drawing between like things that are correlations, not causations. So like making very complex issues like, oh, well, this is this because of that. Right? Like I'm trying to think of an example, but I
Oh, I
can't.
got one for you.
Okay, go.
Let me give you an example. When you talk about people who have survived complex, I mean, like repetitive childhood trauma. When you talk about people who have survived repetitive childhood trauma and torture, and they've experienced so many things that so many people have no idea what they've survived, and they have no idea how it affects them. People often respond with this, well, you just have to, and insert X, Y, or Z random thing. You just have to follow this new age, whatever, steps 1 through 3, and it's going to resolve your complex and chronic PTSD.
Yeah.
Or, oh, if you just did trauma therapy, then it would all go away.
Yeah.
Which completely minimizes the complexity of what it means to have survived things that the human body was never meant to sustain.
Yeah. In politics, they do it. You were 110% correct, Mayor. But like, I remembered the one that I had thought of. Like, so one of the things, right, is border security right now, right? So Trump's always like, I'm going to build the wall. And people will be like, oh, well, he stopped building the wall. My girlfriend Carrie said that to me. Like, well, Biden stopped building the wall. And I'm like, the wall was a bad investment. Like, honestly, first off, stats show that more migrants are coming through Canada than through Mexico. So are we building a wall on Canada too? Because there's more people coming from up there than down there. So that doesn't make sense. It's just something physical that he could give people, like the Romans, to say, look, I'm doing something, but it doesn't actually solve any problems. And that's like, that's what it
Okay.
is. It's like, here's your carrot and look over here. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes, but also, like, let's talk about walls.
Yeah.
Did you know that I visited the place where the Berlin Wall came down?
No. That's awesome.
What has actually happened in the history of every great wall that has ever been built?
Yeah.
I'd invite you to look into the Great Wall of China and the Berlin Wall. Look into why they were removed.
Well, actually, that wall is now you're making me be like, oh, it's like symbolic because it is, and it speaks to his messaging of furthering that rhetoric of we want these people out of our country. They are not like us. They are not welcome. And I think that when we start looking at like people like they do this so that they could say like, oh no, we want strong border policies, right? But by dehumanizing these people, by saying that they're taking your jobs, they're eating animals, they're murderers, they're rapists, they're all of these horrible things, right? It makes people go in their head like, well, then they should all be locked up. And then that we don't look at how those people are treated. Like that we literally lock children in cages, separated from their families, like caused significant intergenerational trauma, and some of them have not been placed back home. Like that is a direct result of policies that were implemented because we do not see those immigrants as fellow human beings. And that's disturbing.
It's not just disturbing. It's really, for me, it's not even just disturbing. It's really one of those things I would never want anybody to experience the isolation that it causes you when you are separated from your family of origin and it doesn't feel like it was a choice.
Yeah.
That is causing trauma for, like you said, intergenerational trauma.
Yeah. And to
And
just dismiss that, like the only way that they can do that is by continuing this kind of divide and hateful rhetoric. Because I mean, if someone that you knew had their child ripped from them, taken away, and separated before they could even, and most of these people are filing for asylum. They're fleeing for their lives. They're entitled under what is that? The Human Rights Act to seek asylum. Like they have the right to come here and seek asylum and be heard on that. They have those rights. And we're gonna lock them up until we hear like that. It's asinine. It's like, okay, here, give us you're tired, you're hungry, and you're broken, right? Like that's what that's what America's supposed to be. And we're not that anymore. And I don't think that's because most Americans aren't good-hearted people and don't want to help people. I think it's because America is stuck in these silos. There's all this fear-mongering and disinformation that makes us think so negatively about the opposite group of people. And most of us are doing really bad and in survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, like I can't really knock my girlfriend Carrie, like she's not super into politics, but like that girl has a lot on her plate. Her life is way more stacked than mine. She has a lot less resources than me. And, you know, she doesn't have that kind of information, but that doesn't make them a bad person. I truly think, Mary, that if people had information and like knew what was going on, that we're all actually on the same page. Like if you gave someone the exact same report, which is true, right? We know it's true because the trials that have happened, Republicans and Democrats have sat and looked at facts, right? And said, this is the conclusion based on the facts. So I think that most Americans agree and we have like the same, most of us are socially liberal. We might disagree on how to get things done, but the way I think the larger population just doesn't understand how these words actually matter because that side will say like, oh, you're just being overly sensitive and you're woke and you're a snowflake. And it's like, no, it actually causes harm. Like there are bomb threats. Now those schools have been shut down how many times, right? There were, I'm pretty sure there was government buildings that were shut down.
Yep.
There are people that are literally afraid to go into that community. And that there was even an article we found about the editor of the Haitian Times, who is in, I don't think she's anywhere near Ohio. And she had threats sent to her home. You know, like you're talking about an entire community of individuals and like just being Haitian. Like that is what you're generalizing to that entire group. This woman is not even from Springfield, Ohio, and she's getting threats. And that's another part of it too, of that anyone who disagrees with us, right, in that high control setting, anyone who disagrees with us is shunned, is wrong, is disowned. Even if like, and you can look at like all of the people that Trump used to have next to him, none of them will back him anymore. Like I don't understand how people don't think that's a problem. Like if everyone around you was like, yeah, I'm for this guy, and now not a single one is like, I'm gonna back you. That should kind of speak to what's going on, because you're the company you keep says a lot about you.
And I think it's also interesting that even whenever you start talking about the divide and the dehumanization, you know, if you stereotype and you look at people and you see their race, their ethnicity, their faith, those are what makes us diverse. You see their spiritual practices, you see the way that they believe, whatever it is they believe. You see all of that. You see the things that they do. Those are the things that make us each unique. But it removes focus on the fact that we are all still human.
Yeah.
And it removes focus on the fact that we all deserve the right to safety. We have the right to safety. We have the right to live our lives as we see fit. And when we promote a narrative that is stereotyping and overgeneralizing, and even in this case, it's outright pretty much lying, it's creating this narrative about an entire group of people that makes it easier for people around them and for people around the world to look at them and say, oh, they're all bad people.
Yeah. Yeah. And even if they don't look at them as all bad people, I think that because I mean, even my friends and family who believe this stuff, right? They don't think that like every person is bad, but they think that the people that are bad enough that we need to do something because it's a threat to their survival, right? And that's because of the language, the coercive language, not only about the othering language, but Mary, maybe you can get a little more into that, like other ways in which high control groups um keep
I mean,
you tethered and like I said before, like not showing you certain information, pulling things out.
well, they want you, if you don't comply with the main narrative of the group, what they do is you, as part of the group, risk ostracization,
Mhm.
ridicule. Like you can be treated inhumanely and subhumanly simply because you don't agree with what they have put forth as a narrative.
Mhm.
If you go seek information from outside of what the group has approved, then you can also be othered
Yeah.
and you risk everything. You risk everything about your identity. If your identity is caught up in the group that you belong to, and your value and worth is caught up in belonging to and being part of something that is bigger than yourself,
Mhm.
then you are risking your identity to simply look at information that doesn't come from approved sources. That's one of the ways. I feel like that's very coercive, and it controls your behavior. It controls the things that you feel like you're allowed to say. It controls the information that you have. And even in certain situations, you're expected to have certain emotional reactions. And if you don't have those emotional reactions, you may also be othered for that. And if you're othered for that, like at that point, you have met the bite model for high control groups.
Well, yeah, because now that you have now been psychologically abused to the point that you're like anticipating what's going to upset that person or cause that kind of rebuttal, and you're correcting for it. So because you don't want to be ostracized, because you don't want to be alone and isolated, you're more likely, if these groups are constantly calling you out on that behavior and othering you, to just fall in line and conform, because to not do so is painful. And I think this is crucial. We need relationships and community to survive. To survive. So if you are being taken away from your community, like in your brain, right? Like this survival, like alarm bells go off. That's really unsettling.
And it doesn't just cause you emotional distress, it can also cause you um, psychosomatic responses. It can cause you a physical reaction. Like you can, like when somebody says something or you come across information that challenges that ideological belief that has been put forth by the leader of the high control group, what can happen is you can literally have panic attacks because of it. You can have your heart pounding. It can feel like you literally can't breathe. It can be a very real physical reaction because that perspective is being challenged.
Yeah.
So sometimes we have to sit with the uncomfortableness of that. Sometimes we have to actually examine what our values are and how our values serve other people groups. Because just because my people group is this doesn't mean that other people groups can't simultaneously exist and have the same value.
Yeah.
And how do we get there in a country that is feeling this kind of divide?
I mean, for me, it's really about trying to understand that one, I truly think that most Americans who are super passionate on either side really feel like our democracy is on the line. They really feel like this is a crucial election, but for very different reasons. Um, and a lot of that is like, it's so bad now, Mary, that like there are people that don't talk to their family members over politics. Like it's bad that it's that divisive. The only way that we can fix that is to openly talk about it. And well, there's also, I really think that we need to look into, outside media sources and
Yeah. But
corporations not being in control of all the news that we consume because it's kind of colored
yeah,
by their interest. So again, these are very complex issues, but
can
you're
I
right.
just interject?
Yes, love.
Because you keep mentioning this thing, we have to talk about it.
What?
I want to expand on why we have to talk about it. If we don't talk about how divisive this rhetoric is, if we don't talk about some of the reasons behind which people grab on and hold on to this rhetoric,
Yeah.
or even the divisive rhetoric, or why they're comfortable with that,
Yeah.
if we don't talk about that, this doesn't even exist as a problem, and we can't address problems that don't exist. That has never in the history happened. We can't just have an invisible problem and address it. Like, how do you address an invisible problem that doesn't exist?
Yeah, you're right. No, we need to talk about it. We need to But yeah, it's a lot. I feel like right now for me it's women's rights are under attack, LGBTQ rights are under attack, voting rights are under attack. I mean, if you look into Project 2025, there's even stuff in there about, getting rid of no fault divorce, which, for those of you who don't know what no fault divorce is, it means that you can go to court and request a divorce without like the consent of your husband. So back before this, we would have to get our husband's consent to get a divorce, which kept many women trapped in unsafe, unhealthy relationships. And is a form of control, right? It's a form of men controlling women. Well, like that's what they're promoting, and they're promoting, lack of birth control access and abortion care because they want children to make more babies. I mean, it's literally like if you listen to some of these people talk, they literally will say things like, they want white women to create more babies so that we have a higher white population and getting rid of not letting in people who are non-white. Now, and I think it's very important to note, they're not saying no immigrants. They're saying no immigrants from like non-European countries. Like they're like, we don't want these people that aren't white. That's what it is. It's what it is, Mary. Drives me
Well,
nuts.
drives you nuts. But here's the thing. I already lived in a world in an environment where men got to dictate.
I know.
I can't go back there. I can't go back there.
Yeah. I'm fortunate enough that I haven't. I think having a daughter for me um has made this like very important to me and just it probably would have been anyway. Like I said, my sister's also in Texas and she's near and dear to my heart, but no, it's
Well, and
if no one speaks out against it, nothing will happen, right?
yeah, yep. And can we just talk about for a moment? You mentioned like women don't have equal rights, right?
Mm-hmm.
So imagine after everything that I've seen in the world, when I learned that women don't in APAP bodies, like they don't have equal rights under the Constitution of the United States of America. Imagine how that felt.
Yeah.
I will tell you that if you're listening to this and you're hearing me, please hear me when I say that the Equal Rights Amendment needs to be published. Because women in America deserve equal rights under the Constitution.
Yeah.
And the current administration has really, really disheartened me to watch them sit there and not direct the archivist to publish it.
You're going to have to put that in the show notes for me, love.
Okay. Because I think that if enough people, sometimes the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And if enough people write the president, write the vice president, write your senator, write your House representative, write your governor, write your state representative, write your state senator, write everybody from one end to the other. If people write enough, it could create a world where we see the Equal Rights Amendment get published. But we can't do that if we're sitting here and promoting rhetoric that is dehumanizing other people groups. We have work to do, and this work matters.
Yeah.
We have work to do. There's so much that you can be doing with your energy, and you have to monitor your energy carefully.
Yeah.
But when it comes to equality, when it comes to constitutional rights for women in AFAB bodies in America, every single one of us in America has a responsibility to choose whether we can spend 5 minutes writing something and sending it to all of those people. Because all of our representatives, the president, the vice president, all of our senators, our governors, they are elected by the people. And if they don't pass the ERA, if they don't publish it, we should vote them all out. I'm a terrible person like that.
No, you're a person that wants change. And I want to get into, and we're not going to be able to get into it today, but maybe another day, Mare. Like, I think also one of the things that, people that are closer to our side need to understand about the other end of that spectrum is, oh, damn, I lost my train of thought.
Well, I was just going to say, I don't care if they're Democratic, Republican, Independent. I don't care what political affiliation they are, vote them out. If they don't serve the American people that they purport to be serving, vote them out.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Okay. So the people on the opposite side of the aisle that feel the Democratic Party has done a really shitty job of following through on its promises, right? There's been multiple presidencies where we say that we're going to do these things and we have these grand ideas, and most of the time corporate America gets the big bag of change and we get the friggin' crumbs. So I think there's this, what Trump does really well and why people like him is he plays to that I am a victim, that the system doesn't help me, that the system is broken, that there are people using this system that shouldn't be, and that, I can't even use the system because I don't make enough. Like, I hear that a lot around here. And it's probably because in New York, like, it's ridiculously expensive to live here. And to get benefits here, you need to make like $20,000 a year, which if you make $20,000 a year, a basement apartment is $1,400. So, I mean, I don't know what you're living on. It's nonsense. So people here do have to cheat the system to get services, but it's survival. But again, if they make us fight over the crumbs, then, they can sit on their big mound of gold. And if we talk about it, then maybe we can stop fighting over the fucking crumbs and talk about the shit that all of us care about, which I think most Americans are for, most Americans are for women having control of their bodies and like codifying abortion access. Most people are for gay marriage. Most people are for like Tim Wall says, mind your own damn business and like live your life. It's not, I don't think that most people want the government telling us what to do in our daily lives. And it's not about damn cheeseburgers. Like misinformation. Anyway, you don't know what I'm talking about? They had this whole thing on Fox News where Kamala Harris is going to take away their cheeseburgers. And I had literally people telling me that they weren't going to vote for Harris because she's going to take away cheeseburgers. And I was like, this is nonsense. Like, this is real. Like, this is not real. This is not what you need to be worried about. Like,
yeah. So here's the thing. We have a couple comments that we should probably talk about or we need to address, but also I wanted to share this picture with y'all. I'm just saying, please, you have the capacity, you have the ability, find the time, make the time to engage in actions that further our development, our evolving as humans. And this picture, for the record, do you want to know where it is?
I see it. Where is it?
It is across from City Hall in downtown Colorado Springs. And it's in support of the Equal Rights Amendment. And I'm just saying, please help us.
Mary, is there, because I know a lot of those campaigns have like a form that we can send out, that kind of stuff.
There's a couple websites I can give you for the show notes.
Awesome.
But one of our listeners says it sounds like the key is stop fighting because they win when we fight. No, they win when we fight each other.
Yes.
They win when we fight each other instead of collectively combating the harm that is being perpetrated.
Yeah. By pitting us against each other. Right. And because all of us are struggling, right? Like most Americans are struggling to pay their bills. There was a report that came out. Did I send you this one, Mary? I'm going to have to drop it for you. There's a report that came out about most parents are chronically stressed in America. Like it was like 60% or something, and the financial impact of that. And it's true. Like most homes in America, like people are really stressed because people are barely getting by. And when you're in survival mode, like we go from thing to thing, right? Like we can't see the whole picture because we don't feel in our bodies like we have the time to pause before we react. And I think for Mary, like for us, like this is our pause. Like pause, look around. What can we do? Right? Because it's really easy to say like, well, I'm just one person, so my vote doesn't matter, or I'm not going to make any impact. But like talking to people is really helpful. And especially if you can learn to talk to people from a stance of like compassion and understanding and empathy rather than like, these are all the reasons why you're wrong. Like, I understand why you might feel this way or that you're also struggling or you think these policies will help you with this. But in fact, tariffs are actually going to raise the cost of prices for just about everything based on history.
Oh my God.
I don't know. That sounds, it might bring some more jobs back here, but there will be a short-term consequence of that. There might be long-term benefits, but like, again, if we talk to people and we explain to them how things are not working for them with facts and don't other them, I think that's really what it is. Just getting back to people loving people instead of us fighting each other. All right. Next comment, Mary. You did great.
Well, this one's good too. It says, I feel that acknowledging our common humanity is the only way we as a nation are going to get through this election. Conversations like this need to happen. I appreciate what you both are saying. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw that. I was like, oh, that warms my heart.
Yeah, I think that's very sweet and very kind. Thank you very much. And then the next comment says it's the immigrants who often boost the economy. What Trump is doing is causing fear and igniting racism. He is a dangerous criminal.
Do you guys remember in Arizona, it was a few years back, where they got rid of all the immigrants and then they didn't have anyone on the farms to pick all their fruit and their fruit went bad? That's what happens. Like, we need immigrants for our economy to actually run. And
Yes.
I'll find that for the show notes too. But yeah, immigrants help boost our economy. They bring new ideas. And going back to what you were saying before, Mare, about that diversity, like, immigrants are diversity, and they have different life experiences and different ways of seeing the world. So they're going to come up with different like solutions and innovations, which is why America has always been a leader, because we take in the best people from the world and we give them an opportunity. Sorry.
You know.
Soapbox.
You know. I mean, I just really, really, really love our listeners' comments, because we have somebody who says, be wary of any belief or ideologies that try to separate you from your fellow human beings.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the message of today.
I think that's the whole message.
Yeah.
Be wary. Examine the belief. Examine the ideology. Examine the effects of the ideology. Does the ideology justify causing harm to another people group? I just have questions, as always. Ooh, and here's another thing for our show notes. Amber Thurman was a lady who died as a result. This is in regards to the abortion policies across states, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And here's another one for the show notes. 2023 to 2024 school year, PEN America reported more than 4,000 instances of book banning in the first half of the 2023-2024 school year, which is more than the entire previous school year.
Yep.
What has historically happened to groups of people when they ban books, when they ban access to information? Banning books is controlling access to information. It's also part of the narrative where people seek to rewrite the narrative about what it means to be an American.
Yep.
You know what it means to be an American? It means that either you immigrated to America, your ancestors immigrated to America, or the indigenous peoples, they came first. They are native to the land. They were here first. But us, with the white skin, we immigrated. We came from Europe. And for me, personally, I grew up in America, but I came from a different culture and a different environment. Actually, it's considered a counterculture against dominant culture. And so the world that I grew up in was an entirely different world. But I grew up in America. I am an American. I've had people tell me to go back to my own country because I speak English as a second language.
Yeah, and you grew up here. But that's what I mean. Like, it's this anyone who even sounds remotely different. Like, it's like you don't belong. But you're right. We were all immigrants. This country was founded on immigrants. We're an immigrant nation. Like, that is what we are. It's crazy to me. And we're supposed to be the country of, like, you know, helping other, like, the America that I was taught as a kid, right, was we help other people, right? Like, we are the helpers of the world. Like, we are, that's that ideal. We came in, we saved World War II. That's the other way the world sees us. We are the peacemakers in the world. And we go from that to being like, all the craziness that has gone on in the past decade is like, I don't know. I don't know what most Americans believe anymore, because it's
I've also had people tell me that I can't speak English as a second language because I was born in America. I've also had people tell me that just because I was born in America, that I was born with like all of the documentation, and I wasn't. So like, here's
But
the
that's what I mean.
thing.
Like, people just
It's
don't
the
know.
demand to conformity. It's the
Yeah.
expectation that everybody who immigrates to America or everybody who lives in America has to comply with the colonizer's
Colonization.
view
Yeah.
of what it means to be America.
Mm.
But the truth is, the reality is that to be American means that you are diverse. We collectively make up what it means to be an American today. And the colonization harmed Indigenous people. And we also need to take accountability for that. Yeah.
We do.
And let's also just talk about for a second that there's the thousands of missing Indigenous women and children. That is a problem too. And if you can't bring yourself to care about that, what does that say about you? I have questions about your character, because I truly believe that addressing harm that is being caused needs to be done as a collective effort. Here's another comment. If we ban books, we're bound to repeat the past. Oh, yes, because then we can't learn from history.
Yeah. That's
And this is our final comment that we're going to read, because I feel like the whole podcast could end on this. The ends do not justify the means. If the means are wrong, the end is not worth it. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Do you have any parting words you'd like to give?
No, I just thought this was amazing. I'm going to put up another post later. I would love for people to follow. I want to start asking the audience what you guys want to hear from us, what policies you want us to talk about, what causes you guys are passionate about, because I want this to be a resource to the community so that people are getting solid information, and Mary and I can do a little investigative reporting and bring it back to you guys, because I really do want it to be helpful. So yeah, if you like this, follow me, listen to my podcast, Good Enough with the Trauma Therapist, and yeah,
That's it. Well, thank you so much, Jamie.
Thanks,
I think
Mary.
this conversation was immensely helpful for me, because it helps me to be able to articulate some of the things that I've experienced in life and then relate it to what I see happening in the world today. And so if you're out there and you find yourself experiencing maybe some discomfort at some of the ideas that we brought out, maybe it could be time to kind of like sit through the discomfort and examine why you're uncomfortable. What about this makes you feel uncomfortable when we're talking about the fact that, the ends do not justify the means, as our commenters said. I'd invite you to be curious and to seek out other information, seek out more information. And as always, thank you very much for listening, for commenting, for all of your support. And I'd like to thank our Patreon subscribers who have funded this podcast. And I'd like to thank BJK, Creating Art. I appreciate it. Thank you to our wonderful guest, Jamie, Good Enough with the Trauma Therapist. I hope you all have a beautiful day. And if you have questions, let us know in the comments below.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Good Enough with the Trauma Therapist. We appreciate you listening. While our host may provide some personal and professional advice, we want to remind you that this show is for entertainment purposes only. Each individual situation is unique, and Good Enough is not a substitute for mental health treatment. If you need a therapist and are located in New York or Missouri, feel free to reach out to us at liendr.com or resilient-mo